average man is not driven by reason, nor by freedom, but by fear. The root of obedience lies in survival, the primitive wiring of the brain that once warned us that standing apart from the group meant death. In the wild, isolation equated to vulnerability. The early human who blended in, nodded along, submitted, lived longer. This evolutionary residue is now the foundation of modern submission. Herd mentality is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. Authority, religion, nationalism, and even morality are scaffolds built atop our biological impulse to follow. Those who wield power understand this. They do not need to command with force, they command with fear. The fear of exclusion, the fear of punishment, the fear of being wrong. Obedience is not a sign of virtue, it is a symptom of conditioning, and the obedient never know they are being controlled. The sheep do not need a shepherd to maintain order. They police each other. A single wolf must watch his step, not because he is hunted from above, but because he is hated from below. The crowd worships sameness and crucifies deviation. The psychological mechanism here is projection. The group, deeply insecure and helpless, unconsciously destroys that which reminds them of their impotence. They ridicule the outlier, not because he is wrong, but because he threatens the fragile. Delusion of consensus. What is called social pressure is psychological warfare, an invisible leash around the neck of the individual. The herd enforces conformity through shame, ridicule, and exclusion. It guilts the strong into weakness and elevates weakness as virtue. This is not accidental. This is survival of the mediocrity. The group needs uniformity to avoid confrontation with its own insignificance. In the pack, identity is diluted. The individual is a mask worn by the collective. The mind of the average man is a patchwork of borrowed beliefs, automated reactions, and societal programming. He has never chosen, only accepted. This is psychological death, to exist without self-possession, to be a vessel filled by others. The education system, media, religion, they do not educate, they indoctrinate. They plant the illusion of autonomy while ensuring mental dependence. The sheep believes he is thinking, but he is merely repeating. He believes he is moral, but he is merely obedient. The moment one begins to think independently, to question the norm, he is no longer one of us. He becomes dangerous, not because he seeks chaos, but because he reveals the lie. The sheep do not desire freedom. They desire comfort masquerading as safety, a life without threat, without fear, without pain, even if it means surrendering control. This is the paradox of modern man. He would rather be safe than sovereign. The cage, if padded well enough, becomes a sanctuary, but security without freedom is slavery, and comfort without struggle is decay. The wolf sees the cage for what it is, a trap built from fear lined with convenience. To live as a sheep is to slowly rot in the warmth of false peace. To live as a wolf is to risk, to fight, to carve one's own path through blood and teeth. To be predator is not merely to dominate others, it is to conquer yourself. If you lose this war, if instinct overrides thought, or if sentiment overrides survival, you fall. You either become a beast ruled by impulse or a broken wolf crawling back to the herd in shame. But if you win, you become something rare, something feared, something free. And this is not the end. The next phase reveals how to move through the world as the unseen predator, to manipulate, dominate, and transcend. You will not simply survive. You will shape the battlefield. Subscribe before we begin. The hunt has only begun. There is no awakening without violence, no transformation without the splitting of the self. Before the wolf can rise, the sheep must die. The mind does not fracture out of whim. It fractures under pressure, under betrayal, under the slow rot. of pretending to be something it is not. The first break is not seen but felt, an instinct, a deep unease crawling beneath the skin. It is the growing realization that something is off, that the smiling faces lie, that the rules enslave, and that morality often disguises cowardice. This break is painful because it tears the mind from the comfort of the collective. The herd offers sedation, predictable rewards, applause for obedience, a sense of belonging. But once the illusion shatters, returning is impossible. The one who sees becomes a threat. The fracture becomes identity. Exile begins not when society casts you out, but when you internally reject its values. The outsider doesn't just observe from the margins, he sees through. This is the beginning of the wolf's mind, the ability to dissect the herd from a distance, to analyze behaviors with cold detachment, to understand that most people are driven not by logic or ethics, but by fear. What others call empathy, the outsider sees as compliance. What others worship as virtue, he exposes as programming. He doesn't belong and never will, and that is his power. Hyper-awareness is the curse and the weapon. The outsider notices manipulation, social games, subtle lies. He becomes psychologically fluent in deception, not to participate, but to defend and eventually dominate. The wolf is not born from comfort. He is born from pain, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, isolation. Where the sheep breaks and submits, the wolf mutates. Pain is not just endured, it is studied. It becomes fuel, data, memory. Every wound becomes a lesson. Every scar, a warning sign etched into the mind. Dark psychology begins here. The turning of trauma into strategy. The one who suffers and survives becomes dangerous, not because he is angry, but because he is calm, because he remembers, because he sees the hidden mechanisms behind cruelty and learns to master them. In this crucible, weakness is extracted, sentiment is dissected. What emerges is not a broken man, but something leaner, sharper, less merciful. The final phase is the reversal, the pivot from prey to predator. This is not mere revenge, it is evolution. The wolf no longer flees or pleads. He calculates, he tests boundaries. He learns the predator's toolkit: psychological mirroring, manipulation, emotional detachment, silence as weaponry. The victim is reactive. The wolf is strategic. He no longer seeks approval but advantage. He no longer craves acceptance but control over his environment. This is where the predator's mind crystallizes, not in brute violence, but in silent, invisible warfare. Power becomes a quiet hum in the background of every interaction. And yet, the transformation is not without cost. The wolf carries solitude like a second skin. He knows that to ascend is to leave behind the warmth of ignorance, but he also knows this: survival is not guaranteed for the submissive. Only the predator writes his fate. The wolf does not wait for permission. He does not ask for fairness or beg for validation. He calculates, he adapts, he takes. In a world where the naive are devoured and the kind mistaken for weak, the wolf survives because he understands the truth most refuse to face. Power is not given, it is taken, and only by those ruthless enough to wield it. This part dissects the anatomy of the predator, not the beast of fang and claw, but the human wolf, cold, analytical, and dangerous in silence. The predator in this world wears no fur, but walks in tailored suits, charming smiles, and surgical words. He reads people like prey and speaks in strategies. To become this entity is not an accident. It is a decision, a shift from innocence to insight. Power is not loud, it is subtle. It does not announce itself, it shifts the room when it enters. The predator understands that power is psychological, control over perception, emotion, and reaction. While sheep fear confrontation and seek harmony, the wolf engineers environments where others submit without knowing why. He cultivates influence, not through violence, but through understanding human weakness and exploiting it without hesitation. Power is extracted from chaos. The wolf thrives in disorder because it exposes the cracks in others. Panic, fear, desperation, these are signals, and the predator decodes them in real time. Every reaction is a thread to pull, every insecurity a lever, the fee. Sheep are reactive. They feel, then act. The wolf inverts the process. He suppresses emotion until the decision is made, then allows himself only the feeling that serves his purpose. Emotional detachment is not apathy, it is a weapon. The predator sees emotional control as the highest form of dominance. If he cannot be moved, he cannot be manipulated. In the predator's mind, empathy is not a moral imperative, it is a tool. He can simulate it to extract trust or extinguish it when it stands in the way of progress. Where others drown in guilt or sentiment, the predator remains still, observing, measuring, deciding. A true predator never exposes his nature. He blends in, smiling, nodding, agreeing, while behind the mask, he is dissecting the psychology of the room. He listens more than he speaks, not out of shyness, but strategy. Every confession someone makes is ammunition for later use. He wears masks not out of cowardice but efficiency. The predator knows that authenticity is a myth among the weak. People believe what comforts them, and the wolf becomes their comfort, until he chooses to become their fear. Manipulation is not deception for deception's sake. It is targeted engineering of behavior. The predator crafts situations that feel natural, inevitable, desired, and yet they were orchestrated from the first word. Society teaches morality to pacify the masses. The predator sees this for what it is, leash training. The wolf rejects the binary of good and evil and replaces it with useful and useless strength and submission, survival and extinction. The predator lives by a darker code. If something must die for him to live, so be it. He does not apologize for strength, nor does he pretend to be something else for acceptance. He understands that in this world, those unwilling to exploit are exploited. Those who hesitate are conquered, and those who still believe in fairness are already prey. They speak of strength as if it is simple. Lift heavier, run faster, speak louder, but true strength is silent. It is the ability to carry truths that would shatter most minds. It is waking each day with the clarity of the wolf and resisting. The urge to tear out the throats of sheep. The real war is not out there. It's inside. You were not born cold. You were made, conditioned, shaped by the slow death of innocence. Somewhere along the path, instinct awoke, sharp, primal, unforgiving. But the remnants of humanity remain. A whisper in the back of the mind asking, "What if I'm wrong?" The wolf feels empathy, but unlike the sheep, it does not drown in it. The instinct to devour coexists with the urge to connect, and that contradiction rips at the psyche. One half reaches out, the other bares its teeth. To be a wolf is to walk this razor's edge. The stronger you become, the fewer can walk beside you. Sheep don't love the wolf, they fear it. And when the wolf shows signs of vulnerability, they mock it until it bites. Isolation becomes the price of clarity. You see what others refuse to acknowledge, the lies they cling to, the illusions they protect, and in seeing you are cast out. But solitude is not your enemy. It is your crucible. The wolf becomes sovereign in the silence, while the sheep grow, weaker in their echo chambers of comfort. Beware of those who claim to love the wolf. They either want to cage it, tame it, or become it. Love is the sheep's religion. romanticized, idealized, weaponized. But to the wolf, love is a transaction of power, a game of mirrors. The predator knows that attachment is often a leash disguised as affection. Lust, meanwhile, is a more honest demon. It demands nothing but surrender, yet even lust can become a trap, binding the wolf with silk chains until its instincts dull, its teeth rot, its fire fades. Real intimacy is rare, for it requires two predators who see, know, and do not flinch. Once the illusion breaks, there is no return. You see the manipulation behind every smile. You hear the hidden desperation in their praise. You feel the hollowness in their words. This awareness is both gift and curse. It grants power, yes, but also burden. You must watch the sheep dance in delusion, while you remain awake in a world of masks. The mind of the wolf becomes a haunted cathedral, echoing, with truths too sharp for the common mind. You will never be understood, but you will never again be deceived. You've made it this far. Most didn't, most won't. The sheep stopped at the fence, the dogs turned back at the edge of the forest. But you kept walking. And now, you stand at the threshold of the battlefield, where masks fall and the game begins. The world is not what they told you it is. Society is not a village of mutual aid. It is an arena, a theater of manipulation, where the powerful script the illusions and the powerless play their roles to death. They call it civilization, but it's nothing more than a carefully designed predator's maze, a structure engineered to benefit those who understand one truth. People don't want truth. They want comfort. The wolf learns this early. In this battlefield, money isn't the goal, it's a weapon. Influence isn't a reward, it's bait. Modern systems reward the cunning, not the kind. They elevate those who can suppress empathy, long enough to play others like pawns. Jobs, politics, entertainment, all of it is layered with power dynamics. People sell themselves, their time, their attention, their loyalty, to the highest bidder. And they do it smiling. The wolf sees this for what it is. Not evil, not good, but strategic architecture. A game designed by wolves for wolves. And only those who unplug from moral delusions can master it. The CEOs, the politicians, the influencers, these are not exceptions. They are refined predators, evolved through layers of charm, deceit, and domination. They don't lead because they care. They lead because they know how to weaponize perception. Watch their eyes, not their words. Notice how they mirror you, how they say just enough to be trusted, how they mask conquest as care. They understand this crucial dark psychological principle. Control the narrative and you control the herd. You, reading this now, you're beginning to see what they see. Not everyone is prey. Some are enforcers, sheepdogs trained to bark, to bite, to keep the others in line. Police, teachers, corporate managers, often sincere but ultimately tools of the shepherds. And the shepherd, the benevolent face of control. He feeds the flock, tends to their wounds, right before shearing them. But the wolf has no role in this system. He doesn't guard, guide, or obey. He observes, learns, and strikes only when it matters. This part is not about becoming a tyrant. It's about realizing you were never meant to be a servant. You were born to be a strategist. Silent, calculated sovereign. The final evolution is not domination over others, but liberation from the need to dominate at all. The wolf, having studied the herd, outplayed the predators, and conquered himself, now walks alone. This is not exile, it is ascension. The greatest battlefield lies within. Every impulse, every fear, every flicker of weakness must be observed, understood, and brought to heel. The wolf who cannot command his own mind remains a slave, even if he wears the crown. In the psychology of power, true strength is quiet. The loudest man in the room is the weakest. Mastery begins when emotion becomes a tool, not a tyrant. A wolf who feels nothing is not cold, he is controlled. Emotion becomes a weapon sharpened by restraint. No wolf survives by instinct alone. He survives by learning to override it. The world worships the extrovert, the connector, the visible icon. But the wolf knows that silence is strategy. Noise invites interference. Visibility invites vulnerability. Isolation is not loneliness, it is filtration. The lone wolf is not alone because he cannot belong. He is alone because he will not dilute his essence to fit into the mold of the sheep. He chooses the high ground, where the air is thinner but the vision clearer. Dark psychology understands this. Most alliances are veiled dependencies. The more you depend, the more you bleed. Strategic isolation allows for focus, sovereignty, and the ability to move without permission. A wolf leaves claw marks, not footsteps. His legacy is not comfort, it is consequence. Influence is not about leading others, it is about being impossible to ignore. The wolf does not guide sheep. He awakens other wolves. The psychology of legacy rejects sentimentality. What matters is impact, not memory, but movement. The lone wolf's influence is felt in the ripple of fear he inspires, in the silent mimicry of those who once scorned him. He becomes myth, not man. The final truth: the game is a cage and even the top predator is still locked inside. The wolf's last act of rebellion is to step beyond the hunt, beyond the kill, beyond the power plays. Freedom is not the right to act. It is the absence of psychological debt. No obligation, no leash, no need. This transcendence is not peace. It is clarity. It is the cold, sharp air of a mountaintop untainted by the stench of compromise. The wolf is no longer driven by hunger or hate. He has outgrown the hunt. He does not look back, because there is no place in my soul for sheep. If you've absorbed this truth and accepted what it awakens within you, leave a comment. There is no room in my subconscious for sheep. That will tell me you're no longer just watching, you're evolving.